In a quiet fishing village along the rugged coast of Maine, where the salty breeze carries whispers of secrets, a family's seemingly perfect life teeters on the edge of an unthinkable tragedy. The Harper family's modest clapboard house, tucked behind wind-swept pines, is a beacon of warmth in their small community. Neighbors admire their closeness, their laughter echoing through the foggy evenings, but beneath this idyllic surface, a shadow is growing, one that will soon engulf them all in a storm no one saw coming. What could unravel a family so cherished, so envied, in a place where everyone knows everyone's name? Jacob Harper, a weathered fisherman with calloused hands and a heart as wide as the ocean, is a local legend in Port Clyde. His days begin before dawn, hauling nets under the gray Maine sky, his boat bobbing on the restless Atlantic. His wife, Margaret, is the family's anchor, managing their home with quiet strength. From cooking hearty meals of clam chowder to selling fish at the local market, she ensures their life runs smoothly despite their modest means. Their two children, Ethan, 17, and Abigail, 15, complete the picture of a family bound by love and hard work. Ethan, tall and reserved, mirrors his father's work ethic, helping mend nets and clean the boat after school. Abigail, vibrant and quick-witted, darts through life with a spark that lights up their home, assisting her mother at the market before tackling her chores. Their small home, with its creaky floors and salt-stained windows, holds just 2 bedrooms. Since childhood, Ethan and Abigail have shared a room, a practical arrangement in a house stretched thin by necessity. To Jacob and Margaret, this is unremarkable. Siblings sharing a space is just part of their simple life. The room, with its twin beds and a single lamp casting soft shadows, is where the siblings trade stories after long days. Evenings are filled with the hum of family life, Jacob recounting tales of the sea, Margaret reminding Ethan to watch over his sister, and the kids sharing school gossip over plates of fried haddock. The neighbors, sipping coffee at the local diner, often praise the Harpers as the ideal family, untouched by the troubles that plague others. But ideals can be deceptive, and in the quiet of their shared room, something is stirring, something no one, not even the Harpers, could predict. As Ethan and Abigail navigate the turbulent waters of adolescence, subtle changes begin to surface. Ethan grows quieter, his thoughts often drifting as he sits alone on the porch, staring at the horizon. Abigail, meanwhile, becomes preoccupied with her appearance, stealing glances in the cracked mirror in their room, asking her mother vague questions about growing up. Jacob and Margaret, consumed by the daily grind of fishing and market sales, miss these signs. The siblings' shared room, once a haven of innocent chatter, becomes a space where boundaries blur. Late at night, after the house falls silent, Ethan and Abigail talk about school, friends, and the strange new feelings neither fully understands. Ethan, scrolling through his phone, stumbles across videos shared by friends, clips that spark curiosity and confusion. At first, he dismisses them as harmless, but their pull is stronger than he expects, planting seeds of questions he's too young to answer. One chilly evening, as the wind howls outside, Ethan hesitates before speaking. "Abigail," he whispers in the dark, "you ever hear about those adult videos?" Abigail, curled under her quilt, giggles nervously. "What are you talking about, Ethan?" "That's weird." But curiosity, that relentless force of youth, nudges her closer. Ethan, emboldened by her reaction, pulls up a video on his phone. The screen's glow illuminates their faces, wide-eyed and uncertain. The images are strange, overwhelming, yet impossible to look away from. Abigail's initial discomfort gives way to fascination, and Ethan, though uneasy, feels a thrill he can't explain. They laugh it off, pretending it's a joke, but the seed is planted. What begins as a shared secret, a fleeting moment of teenage rebellion, soon becomes a ritual. Night after night, they huddle over the phone, watching, whispering, questioning. Abigail asks Ethan things she'd never dare ask their mother, naive questions about bodies, relationships, and what's normal. Ethan, barely more knowledgeable, answers with a confidence he doesn't feel, piecing together half-truths from locker room talk and online forums. They tell themselves it's harmless, just a game between siblings, a secret no one else needs to know. But the videos, with their distorted portrayals of intimacy, begin to warp their understanding, blurring lines that should never be crossed. One night, Abigail's voice trembles as she asks, "Ethan, do people really do that stuff? Like, could we try it?"
The question hangs in the air, heavy and dangerous.
Ethan freezes, his instincts screaming that this is wrong, but the haze of curiosity and adolescent impulsiveness clouds his judgment. "I mean, it's just us," he says, his voice unsteady. "No one would know, right? It's not a big deal." In that moment, they step over a line, unaware of the abyss waiting on the other side. What starts as a reckless experiment spirals into something neither can control, a secret that grows darker with each passing night. To the outside world, the Harpers remain unchanged. Ethan still mends nets with his father, Abigail still helps at the market, and their laughter still rings through the house. But in the quiet of their room, the siblings are caught in a web of their own making, driven by ignorance and the unchecked impulses of youth. Jacob and Margaret, exhausted from their daily toil, notice nothing amiss. The neighbors still nod approvingly as they pass the Harper house, unaware of the storm brewing within. But secrets, like the tides, have a way of rising to the surface, and the Harpers' perfect facade is about to crack in a way that will shatter their lives forever. The Maine dawn breaks cold and gray, painting the Harper house in muted hues as the family goes about their routines. Jacob hauls his fishing gear to the dock, his boots crunching on the gravel path. Margaret sorts card and haddock for the market, her hands swift despite the early hour. Ethan and Abigail, though, carry a weight no one else can see. Their secret, born in the flicker of a phone screen, has grown into a shadow that follows them everywhere. They avoid each other's eyes at breakfast, their usual banter replaced by strained silence. Yet, to Jacob and Margaret, the kids seem fine, maybe a little tired, but nothing unusual for teenagers. The truth, however, is far uglier, and it's only a matter of time before it spills into the open. Ethan lies awake at night, his mind racing. The thrill of their secret has soured, replaced by a gnawing unease. He replays their actions, each memory sharper and more shameful than the last. He knows they've crossed a line, but stopping feels impossible, like trying to hold back the tide.
Abigail, too, is changing.
Her once bright laughter is rare now, her energy dulled by a mix of confusion and fear. She still joins her mother at the market, smiling for customers, but her thoughts are elsewhere, tangled in questions she can't voice. The videos they watched, once a source of curiosity, now feel like a trap, their images seeping into her dreams. One foggy afternoon, as Ethan mends nets on the porch and Abigail washes dishes in the kitchen, the house feels oppressively quiet. Jacob is out at sea, and Margaret is at the market, leaving the siblings alone.
Abigail drops a plate, the crash echoing through the house.
Ethan rushes in, finding her staring at the shards, her hands trembling. "You okay?" he asks, his voice tight. She nods but doesn't meet his gaze. The silence between them is heavy, charged with unspoken guilt. They clean up the mess, but the act feels symbolic, like trying to piece together something already broken. Weeks pass, and the siblings' secret deepens, becoming a routine they can't escape. They tell themselves it's still a game, a private rebellion, but the innocence is gone. Ethan feels the weight of being the older brother, the one who should have known better, but he's too young to navigate the consequences. Abigail, caught between curiosity and shame, follows his lead, trusting him even as doubt creeps in. Their parents remain oblivious, caught up in the grind of survival. Jacob, exhausted from long days on the water, assumes Ethan's quietness is just teenage moodiness. Margaret, juggling household chores and market sales, mistakes Abigail's withdrawal for typical adolescent growing pains.
10, one crisp October morning, Abigail wakes feeling off.
Her stomach churns, and a wave of nausea sends her rushing to the bathroom. She brushes it off as a stomach bug, but the symptoms persist: fatigue, dizziness, and a strange heaviness she can't explain. At school, fragments of health class lessons echo in her mind: missed periods, morning sickness, pregnancy. Panic claws at her chest. She counts the days, realizing her period is late, very late. Alone in her room, she sits on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall, her heart pounding. The possibility is too terrifying to face, but she can't ignore it. That evening, as Ethan returns from school, Abigail waits for him at the bedroom door, her face pale and tear-streaked. "Ethan," she whispers, her voice barely audible, "I think something's wrong. I think I might be pregnant."
The words hit Ethan like a punch, stealing his breath.
His mind reels, grasping for denial.
"No way, Abigail.
You sure?"
Maybe you're just sick.
But her fear is contagious, and deep down, he knows she might be right. "I haven't had my period," she says, her voice breaking. "And I feel awful all the time." Ethan's hands shake as he tries to stay calm.
Okay, don't tell anyone.
"We'll figure this out."
Just don't say anything, Alricht.
The days that follow are a blur of dread. Abigail withdraws further, barely eating, her eyes darting nervously whenever Margaret asks if she's okay. Ethan tries to act normal, but guilt gnaws at him. He avoids their shared room as much as possible, staying late at school or lingering on the docks with Jacob. But the secret festers, growing heavier with each passing day. Abigail's symptoms worsen, and her fear becomes impossible to hide. She starts skipping school, claiming headaches, and spends hours curled up in bed, haunted by what she's done. Ethan, desperate to protect her, searches online for answers but finds only horror stories that deepen his panic. Margaret, ever observant, notices the change in her daughter. One morning, as Abigail sits listlessly at the kitchen table, Margaret presses a hand to her forehead. "You're not sick, are you?" she asks, her voice sharp with concern. Abigail mumbles something about a cold, but Margaret's instincts scream that something's wrong. "We're going to the doctor," she declares, ignoring Abigail's protests. Ethan overhears, his stomach dropping. He wants to stop them, to confess, but fear locks the words in his throat. As Margaret drives Abigail to the clinic in town, the foggy Maine landscape feels like a reflection of the haze clouding their lives. At the clinic, the truth emerges like a tidal wave. The doctor, a kind but serious woman, delivers the news: Abigail is pregnant.
Margaret's world collapses.
Her face drains of color, her hands gripping the chair as she struggles to process the words.
Pregnant? She's only 15.
How is this possible?
Abigail, sobbing, kennt mit her Mutters Eis.
The doctor asks gentle questions, but Abigail's silence speaks volumes. Margaret's mind races, piecing together the impossible. When they return home, she confronts Ethan and Abigail in the cramped living room, her voice trembling with rage and disbelief. "What did you do?" she demands, looking at Ethan. "What did you do to your sister?"
Jakob, home from the docks, hears the accusation and explodes.
"Ethan, tell me this isn't true," he roars, his fists clenched. Ethan stares at the floor, unable to speak, his silence a confession. Margaret collapses into a chair, tears streaming down her face.
"Who could you?
How could you both do this?" The room feels suffocating, the weight of their actions crushing the family's fragile harmony. Abigail's sobs fill the silence, and Ethan's shame is palpable. The Harpers, once the pride of Port Clyde, are now a family fractured, standing on the precipice of a scandal that could destroy them all. The Harper house, once alive with warmth and laughter, now feels like a tomb. The revelation of Abigail's pregnancy has shattered the family, leaving each member grappling with a mix of anger, shame, and grief. Jacob sits in the living room, his weathered hands covering his face, unable to look at his children. Margaret's eyes, red from crying, dart between Ethan and Abigail, searching for answers she doesn't want to hear. The siblings, seated across from each other, are silent, Abigail trembling, Ethan staring blankly at the floor. The air is thick with unspoken questions. How did this happen? How could they not see it coming? And what comes next? Jacob breaks the silence, his voice hoarse. How long were you going to hide this? Did you think we wouldn't find out? Abigail's sobs intensify, but she can't respond. Ethan tries to speak, but the words catch in his throat. I didn't mean for this to happen, he finally mumbles, his voice barely audible. Margaret's anger flares. Didn't mean for it to happen? Ethan, you're her brother. You were supposed to protect her, not. She can't finish, her voice breaking as she buries her face in her hands. The weight of their betrayal is unbearable, a wound that cuts deeper than any storm they've weathered. Abigail, curled into herself, whispers, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would. I didn't know. Her words are drowned by Margaret's sharp retort. You didn't know?
Jure 15, Abigail. Jure a child.
Jacob stands abruptly, pacing the room, his anger barely contained. This can't get out, he says, his voice low but firm. If the town hears about this, we're done. No one will look at us the same. He turns to Abigail, his eyes softening with pain. We can't keep this baby. It's not right for you, for us, for anyone. Abigail's head snaps up, her tear-streaked face defiant.
No, Dad, please. It's my baby.
I can't. Her voice cracks, and she clutches her stomach instinctively.
Margarets Expression hardens. Abigail, you're too young. You can't raise a child.
You can't even take care of yourself yet. And this isn't something we can hide. The reality of their situation settles like a fog, cold and unyielding. Abigail knows her mother's right, but the thought of losing the baby feels like losing a part of herself. The next morning, Margaret takes Abigail to a hospital in Portland, a 2-hour drive from Port Clyde.
The journée is silent, save for Abigail's quitsops.
She stares out the window at the passing pines and rocky coastline, feeling as though she's being pulled toward a void. Margaret grips the steering wheel, her knuckles white, her own tears held back by sheer will. At the hospital, Abigail undergoes the procedure, a clinical process that feels anything but routine. Lying on the sterile bed, she stares at the ceiling, the fluorescent lights blinding. The pain is physical, but the emotional weight is crushing. When it's over, she feels hollow, as if a piece of her has been carved away. Back home, the family tries to move forward, but the silence is deafening. Jacob stays out on the water longer than necessary, avoiding the house. Margaret busies herself with chores, her movements mechanical. Ethan and Abigail barely speak, the shared room now a reminder of their mistake. The town, oblivious to their secret, continues its daily rhythm, fishermen hauling lobster traps, neighbors chatting at the general store. But inside the Harper house, the warmth is gone, replaced by a chill that no fire can dispel. Abigail struggles most of all. The vibrant girl who once danced through life is now a shadow, her eyes dull and her movements slow. She avoids mirrors, unable to face herself, and spends hours alone in their room, haunted by what she's lost. Ethan, racked with guilt, tries to reach out, but his words feel empty. It's going to be okay, Abigail, he says one night, but she doesn't respond. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing echoes of a cry that isn't there. The family's attempt to bury their secret only buries them deeper in pain, and the worst is yet to come. Strange occurrences begin to plague the house. One night, as Jacob repairs the roof, a sudden gust knocks him off balance, sending him crashing to the ground. He breaks his ankle, a painful reminder of their vulnerability. Margaret, distracted at the market, is cheated out of a day's earnings by a smooth-talking customer. Ethan, riding his bike home from school, swerves to avoid a car and crashes, bruising his shoulder badly. Each incident feels like a warning, a ripple from the choice they made.
Margaret, checken, whispers to Jakob one night. Is this punishment?
Did we do this to ourselves? Jacob, a practical man, wants to dismiss it, but doubt creeps in. Something feels wrong, as if the house itself is holding its breath.
Abigail's nightmares begin soon after.
In her dreams, a faceless child stands in the corner of their room, its cries piercing the silence. She wakes sweating, heart racing, the sound lingering in her ears. She tells Ethan, hoping for comfort, but he brushes it off.
It's just a dream, Abigail.
You're stressed. But his voice lacks conviction, and she sees fear in his eyes.
The dreams grow more vivid, the child's voice clearer. VHY dit you li aimer.
Abigail starts hearing the cries even when awake, faint whispers from the hallway or the kitchen. She begins to unravel, her fear infecting the entire family.
One stormy night, as thunder rumbles over the coast, Abigail screams wake the house.
Margaret rushes to her side, finding her curled in a ball, pointing at the dark corner of the room. It's there, Mom.
It's Wettchen, Aimee.
Margaret sees nothing but holds her daughter tightly, feeling her tremble.
Jakob and Ethan stand in the doorway, helpless.
The family is breaking, haunted not just by their actions but by something deeper, something they can't explain. The Harpers, once the heart of Port Clyde, are now prisoners in their own home, trapped by a past they can't escape. The Harper house, once a haven of laughter and love, now feels like a prison. The walls seem to close in, the air heavy with unspoken guilt. Abigail's screams have become a nightly ritual, her nightmares growing more vivid, the child's cries echoing in her mind even during the day. She barely eats, her face gaunt, her eyes haunted by a grief she can't name. Margaret watches her daughter deteriorate, her own heart breaking with every tear Abigail sheds. Jacob, usually stoic, is unraveling too, his injury keeping him from the sea and forcing him to confront the chaos at home. Ethan, burdened by his role in their tragedy, withdraws into silence, avoiding everyone. The strange incidents continue, each one chipping away at the family's fragile resolve. Margaret hears whispers in the kitchen late at night, a soft voice saying, "Mom, I'm hungry." She spins around, expecting to see Abigail, but the room is empty. Jacob finds tools misplaced, nets tangled in ways he can't explain. Ethan's bike, repaired after his accident, breaks down again for no reason. The family begins to wonder if they're cursed, if the choice to end Abigail's pregnancy has unleashed something beyond their understanding. Even the neighbors, usually nosy, sense the change, their friendly waves replaced by cautious glances. Margaret, desperate for answers, confides in a friend at the market. "Something's wrong with us," she admits, her voice low. "Ever since it happened, nothing's been right." Her friend, a superstitious woman, suggests they consult a local spiritual advisor, someone known for helping families in distress. Margaret hesitates. Neither she nor Jacob believes in such things, but the weight of their suffering pushes her to act. She arranges a visit from Mrs. Clara, an elderly woman respected in Port Clyde for her wisdom and connection to the spiritual. Mrs. Clara arrives on a foggy evening, her presence calm but commanding. She listens as Margaret recounts the family's ordeal, her eyes narrowing when Abigail's pregnancy is mentioned. "You took a life before it could begin," she says softly, her voice free of judgment but heavy with truth. "That child's spirit is restless, tied to this house by pain and anger.
It feels betrayed."
Abigail, sitting nearby, bursts into tears, her body shaking. "I didn't want to," she sobs. "I didn't know what else to do." Mrs. Clara places a hand on her shoulder.
Child, the spirit knows your heart.
But it needs peace, and so do you.
Mrs.
Clara proposes a ritual to help the spirit find rest, a ceremony to acknowledge the loss and seek forgiveness. Jacob, skeptical but desperate, agrees. The family prepares the house, setting up a small altar in the living room with candles, flowers, and a photograph of the Oceana symbol of life and renewal. As the ritual begins, Mrs.
Clara chants softly, her words blending with the sound of Wafes outside.
The family kneels, their hands clasped, their voices trembling as they speak words of remorse.
We're sorry, Margaret whispers, tears streaming down her face.
We didn't know what we were doing. Abigail's voice is barely audible. Please forgive me. The air feels lighter as the ritual ends, the candles flickering in the dim room.
Mrs.
Clara looks at the family, her expression solemn. The spirit has heard you, but healing takes time. You must live with intention now. Do good, be kind, honor the life that was lost. The family nods, clinging to her words like a lifeline.
For the first time in weeks, Abigail sleeps through the night, free of nightmares.
The whispers and strange occurrences begin to fade, but the scars remain, etched into their hearts. Abigail starts small, volunteering at a local food pantry, her hands trembling as she hands out bags of groceries. Each act feels like a step toward redemption, a way to honor the child she never knew. Margaret and Jacob, too, change their ways. They spend more time with their children, talking openly about their fears and mistakes. Jacob, once distant, shares stories of his own youth, hoping to guide Ethan and Abigail through theirs. Margaret listens to Abigail's worries, no matter how small, determined not to let her daughter slip away again. Ethan struggles most with his guilt. He avoids his old friends, the ones who shared the videos that started it all, and throws himself into school and work. He helps Jacob on the boat when his ankle heals, learning the rhythms of the sea as a way to ground himself. But at night, he lies awake, replaying his choices, vowing to be a better brother. The family's efforts to heal are slow, painful, but they hold on to hope, knowing they can't undo the past but can shape a better future. The town, unaware of the full story, begins to notice the Harpers' quiet strength. Neighbors comment on Abigail's kindness at the pantry, on Jacob's steady presence at the docks. The family's pain is private, but their resilience shines through. Yet, in quiet moments, Abigail still feels the weight of her loss. On stormy nights, she dreams of a child not angry, but sad, watching her from a distance. She wakes with tears, knowing the dream is more than a dream. It's a reminder of the life she carries in her heart, a responsibility she'll bear forever. The Harper family's journey toward healing is fragile, like a boat navigating choppy waters. The ritual with Mrs. Clara brought a fleeting sense of peace, but the weight of their actions lingers, a constant reminder of what they've lost. Abigail, once the heart of the family, struggles to find her place again. She moves through her days mechanically, attending school, helping at the pantry, but her smile is rare, her laughter gone. The nightmares have lessened, but the memory of the child haunts her, a shadow she can't shake. Margaret and Jacob watch her closely, their own guilt a mirror to hers, knowing their inattention played a role in the tragedy. Ethan, too, is changed. The confident older brother is gone, replaced by a quiet, introspective boy who carries his shame like a heavy coat. He avoids the bedroom he shares with Abigail, opting to sleep on the couch when he can. School feels like a minefield. Friends ask why he's so distant, but he can't tell them the truth. Instead, he buries himself in homework and chores, hoping hard work will drown out his thoughts. Jacob, seeing his son's struggle, tries to reach out, but their conversations are stilted, weighted by unspoken blame. Margaret throws herself into keeping the family together, cooking meals no one eats with enthusiasm, organizing family nights that feel forced. She talks to Abigail about everything: school, friends, even boys hoping to rebuild the trust they've lost. But Abigail's responses are short, her eyes distant. One evening, as they clean fish together, Margaret tries again. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" she says softly. Abigail nods but says nothing, her hands trembling as she slices through a card. Margaret's heart aches, knowing the gap between them may never fully close. The town of Port Clyde remains oblivious to the Harpers' secret, but gossip begins to swirl. A neighbor notices Abigail's absence from school, another comments on Jacob's long hours at sea. Whispers of trouble at the Harper house circulate at the diner, but no one knows the truth. The family feels the weight of these unseen eyes, knowing a single slip could expose their shame. Jacob, once proud, now avoids the general store, unable to face the curious stares. Margaret, ever practical, pushes through, but her smiles at the market are forced, her energy drained. Abigail's volunteering becomes her lifeline. At the pantry, she finds solace in helping others, each small act a way to atone. An elderly woman, grateful for a bag of groceries, pats her hand and says, "You've got a good heart, dear."
The words stay with Abigail, a flicker of light in her darkness.
She starts spending more time there, organizing shelves, chatting with regulars. It's not enough to erase her pain, but it gives her purpose, a reason to keep going. Margaret notices the change and encourages it, hoping it's a sign of healing. Ethan, meanwhile, finds his own path. He joins a school program mentoring younger kids, drawn to the idea of guiding others away from the mistakes he made. He's patient with the kids, teaching them to tie knots or fix bikes, and their admiration soothes his wounded pride. But at home, he and Abigail remain distant, their shared room a battleground of memories. One night, unable to sleep, Ethan sits on the porch, the cold air biting his skin. Jacob joins him, offering a rare moment of connection. "You're still my son," Jacob says gruffly. "We'll get through this." Ethan nods, but the words feel hollow. The strange occurrences in the house have stopped, but the family remains on edge, waiting for the next blow.
Margaret, cleaning the attic one day, finds an old baby blanket, a relic from Abigail's infancy.
She clutches it, tears falling, wondering if they made the right choice. She hides it away, unable to bear the reminder. Jacob, back on the water, feels the sea's rhythm but no longer its peace. He prays silently, something he hasn't done in years, asking for forgiveness not just for Abigail and Ethan, but for himself. Abigail's dreams continue, though less frequent. The child no longer cries but stands silently, its presence a quiet accusation. She wakes with a heavy heart, writing in a journal to process her thoughts. "I'm sorry," she writes over and over, as if the words could reach the spirit she's lost. She shares her fears with Mrs. Clara during a follow-up visit, and the older woman listens patiently. "You're carrying a heavy load, child," she says. "But you're young. You can still make good from this pain." Abigail clings to those words, determined to try.
The family begins to rebuild, piece by piece.
They attend church together, something they rarely did before, finding comfort in the community's quiet support. Margaret and Jacob talk more openly with their children, setting new boundaries, ensuring Ethan and Abigail have separate spaces when possible. The shared room, once a necessity, is now a symbol of their failure, and they work to rearrange the house, giving Abigail a small corner of her own. It's not much, but it's a start. As winter approaches, the Harpers face their first holiday season since the tragedy. Thanksgiving is quiet, the table set with care but the mood somber. Abigail helps Margaret cook, a small step toward normalcy. Ethan carves the turkey, his hands steady despite the weight in his chest. Jacob raises a glass, his voice thick. "To family," he says. "To starting over." The words are simple, but they carry the promise of hope, fragile but real. The Harpers know their scars will never fully heal, but they're learning to live with them, one day at a time.
Winter settles over Port Clwyd, blanketing the Harper house in snow and silence.
The family's efforts to heal continue, but the road is long, each step shadowed by the past. Abigail, now 16, carries herself with a quiet determination, her volunteering at the pantry a constant in her life. She's become a familiar face there, her kindness noted by those she helps. Yet, her eyes still hold a flicker of sadness, a reminder of the child she lost. She keeps her journal close, filling it with thoughts she can't say aloud, a way to honor the life that never was. Ethan, nearing 18, throws himself into his final year of high school, determined to graduate and make something of himself. He's distanced himself from the friends who led him astray, choosing solitude over their reckless influence. His mentoring work with younger kids gives him purpose, a chance to be the role model he failed to be for Abigail. At home, he's quieter but more present, helping Jacob with repairs or sitting with Margaret to plan meals. The guilt still lingers, but he channels it into action, hoping to rebuild trust. Margaret and Jacob have grown closer through their shared pain, their marriage tested but enduring. They attend parenting classes at the community center, learning to communicate better with their children. Margaret, once consumed by work, now prioritizes time with Abigail and Ethan, listening to their fears and dreams. Jacob, back on the water, finds solace in the sea's vastness, but he's more intentional about being home, sharing stories with his kids to bridge the gap between them. The town, still unaware of the Harpers' full story, begins to see them as a family rising from hardship. Neighbors stop by with small gifts, a pie, a knitted scarf, sensing their struggle without knowing its depth. The Harpers accept these gestures with gratitude, their pride softened by necessity. Abigail's work at the pantry earns her a small award from the community, a certificate she hangs in her new corner of the house. It's a small victory, but it feels like a turning point, a sign they might reclaim their place in Port Clyde. The dreams that haunted Abigail have faded, replaced by moments of quiet reflection. She no longer hears the child's cries, but she feels its presence in subtle ways, a breeze that feels too warm, a shadow that lingers too long. She visits Mrs.
Clara Montley, finding comfort in her wisdom.
"You're doing right by that spirit, Mrs. Clara tells her. "Keep living with purpose, and it'll find peace." Abigail nods, determined to honor that promise. She starts a small garden behind the house, planting flowers as a quiet tribute, a place to sit and remember.
Ethan to Zeke's redemption.
He writes a letter to Abigail, leaving it on her bed one morning. "I'm sorry for everything," it reads.
"I schuld we been better.
I'll spend my life making it up to you." Abigail reads it through tears, unable to respond but keeping it in her journal. Their relationship is strained, but small gestures, a shared glance, a quiet joke hint at healing. They no longer share a room, a change that brings relief to both. Ethan's new space, a corner of the attic, is sparse but his own, a place to rebuild himself.
The family faces challenges as winter deepens.
A storm damages Jacob's boat, straining their finances, but they pull together, with Ethan taking a part-time job at the docks to help. Margaret organizes a community fundraiser, humbled by the support they receive. Abigail, inspired, starts a school project to raise awareness about teen mental health, channeling her pain into advocacy. The project earns her praise from teachers, a small step toward reclaiming her confidence. As spring nears, the Harpers find a new rhythm. They gather for Sunday dinners, the table filled with simple but heartfelt meals. Laughter returns, tentative at first, but growing stronger. Jacob shares plans to expand his fishing business, hoping to give his kids a better future. Margaret enrolls in a community college course, dreaming of a career beyond the market. Ethan applies to colleges, his grades strong despite the chaos of the past year. Abigail, though still healing, begins to smile again, her spirit slowly rekindling. In quiet moments, the family reflects on their journey. Jacob, sitting on the porch with Margaret, says, "We can't change what happened, but we can live better for it." Margaret nods, her hand in his. Abigail, tending her garden, whispers apologies to the flowers, hoping the child hears her. Ethan, watching the waves, vows to be the brother Abigail deserves. The Harpers know their scars will always ache, but they've learned that love, forgiveness, and purpose can light even the darkest paths. Their story, though painful, becomes a lesson in resilience. The boundaries they've set, the lessons they've learned, and the good they strive to do are their atonement. The child's shadow remains, a reminder of their mistake, but also a guide, urging them to live with intention. As the main sun rises over the ocean, the Harpers face each day with cautious hope, knowing they've been given a second chance to be the family they always wanted to be.